early, and we kind of didn't have to search much. The four superstars were already available, so we kind of quickly reached out to them. And in a few moments from now, I won't stand between you all, but I have an obligation to kind of introduce each of them. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to uh, uh, if there is one person I look up to very deeply from the positivity and the energy that somebody brings to the table, it is Rekha Shetty. I know her through her my Rotary connections. She was the past district governor, very, very senior position of Rotary in the Rotary world. She is the managing director of Far Star Distribution Network. She is what you would call a person who sits, stands, and walks innovation in everything that she speaks. So everything about her is innovation and creativity combined, which you will know in a few moments when you hear her speak. She consults with some of the major corporates on long-term innovation strategy. She has authored dozens of books. She's an entrepreneur, original thinker, and foremost, very, very positive and a great human being. And thank you, Rekha, for being here with us and sharing the time. And we are truly delighted to have you in this forum. Thank you. That is Rekha Shetty for you. I want to then move over to the next guest, Viji. Viji is a serial entrepreneur. She is the CEO of Securus. She's an expert on diversity and inclusion, prevention of sexual harassment at workplace. The first time I met Viji was when I was in, the early days of Professional Speakers Association, where I was associated with her. And I saw single-handedly how she went about, helping organize the first annual summit. We were just a few months old organization, very fledgling organization. I saw Viji at close quarters grab things and make the first annual event a great success. So that's the time when I got to know Viji very well. Viji is again over 20 years of industry experience in MNCs in India and US. She was earlier with co-founded Kelp HR and worked with Infosys. And she's also the ILDC Women's Excellence Award winner in 2020 and the Homepreneur Award in 2018. She's also an author and speaker, which you will know soon. She's an excellent communicator on her subject of diversity, inclusion, and prevention of sexual harassment. Thank you, Viji, for being here with us, and amazing to have you on board. That's Viji for you. When we were looking for somebody in the Gen Next, I couldn't think of somebody better fitted for the role than Srinidhi. Srinidhi is a human resource executive, a young person who's just at the start of her career. She works for Philips Global Business and is currently based out of Chennai. She specializes in HR, analytics, and insight, an undergrad degree in psychology, sociology, and English major, a master's degree in applied. Srinidhi is actually going to give us an insight into what the millennials think about, millennials and Gen Next think about this subject. And that's very, very crucial for all of us to take away as well, because she represents the millennials and Gen Next. Welcome, Srinidhi, and thank you so much for taking time to be with us. Last, but like I mentioned, Sangeeta has been a dear supporter of all our initiatives so far. Thank you, Sangeeta. Sangeeta is a high-performance coach. Three words to describe her is that she is high performance, and that is seen in everything that she does around her. She's a keynote speaker. She's a chartered accountant. She's been a chartered accountant for over 2 decades, held multiple positions. She's on the board of multiple companies. She was still recently the CFO of a multinational, worked across geography. She has done a Harvard program, an international coach. She's authored multiple books, and she's, of course, an athlete and an art of living practitioner. But one very, very important thing about Sangeeta is that Anything that you say, she's first to say, let's get it done. Let's go on with it. A very positive attitude, an attitude of go-getter kind of an attitude, and an extremely positive person. It's my privilege to introduce Sangeeta Sumesh to this audience. Thank you, Sangeeta, once again for being here. And with no more ado, I'm going to pass this the wealth management for women over to Sangeeta. She's going to be the host for the evening for the rest of thing. And over to you, Sangeeta. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Babu, for the lovely introduction and setting the tone and the context for this evening. And definitely, being a finance professional, being your friend, and being so passionate about women and empowering them and making them achieve what they want as a high performance coach, I am more than happy to be associated with FinSherpa in launching this. So thank you. So great to have you all, and it's fabulous to see so many women, and I don't see most.
I'll call you later. I'm in a call. Okay.
Yeah, I even with the little bit screen, with the pictures and it all looks colorful and vibrant. So I already feel the energy. I think that's the speciality of women. So if I were to kind of talk about today, now let's take a moment and step back. In the earlier era, women were known to be at home. They were, focusing more on the home and not on their careers. But now, the times have been changing. So now when you look at the women, I think a lot of women, they are contributing to the financial wellness of their family. And, I always feel like a woman is a giver, giving unconditional love and, supporting the needs of the family. And a woman is normally putting others' needs before her needs. And I think that's what actually makes a woman a lot special. So by doing this, what I also feel is women, tend to not give importance to the financial aspects, be it financial independence, financial planning, whatever. And even till a couple of years ago, I know a lot of women who've been well educated, doing very well in their careers, but the entire earnings used to be given to either the father or the brother, husband, whoever, for them to manage it. And by doing that, they don't think about their own financial requirements. But I think this trend is something that's slowly been changing, because if you were to notice, this can happen to any of us, in case of any sort of emergency that we didn't foresee, or maybe a separation, I mean, whatever it happens, then I think it's important for women to take charge of their finances, at least be financially aware. So I think financial awareness is the need of the hour. And I'm sure most of you would have seen the advertisement of Paytm, right? Wherein, they interviewed a whole lot of women. I mean, not interviewed, that game that they played. And the difference was so stark. The men were all in the front and the women were at back when it comes to the financial awareness. So I think it's very important that we must be financially aware to take the financial decisions that's best suited for each of us in whatever role that we are playing. So that is why I always say, having the kind of financial awareness is important. But what I have also noticed is, while financial awareness is something that most people would like, women especially have the financial reluctance. The reluctance to even know the money matters or planning or doing. I mean, of course, there are exceptions to the rule, but a lot of them, they have this lot of the reluctance. So I would like to know from each of our three speakers. Yes, so I would like to know from our three speakers what has been, whether they have faced any sort of reluctance. But more than that, I'm keen to know, since the landscape of women's financial independence has been changing, how do each of you plan and manage your finances? So I think by sharing your personal experience and your insights, I'm sure, a lot of the others who are present here, they will get benefited. So Viji, you being the entrepreneur, I would love to hear from you. And if you can share something there, that would be awesome.
Okay, lovely. Okay, so in terms of the financial reluctance, at least I can speak for myself. Being a banker's daughter, for me, financial matters, I always had a guide, my dad, who was guiding me and giving me all the tips right from the time I was a young kid. I used to be there helping him with in the bank, counting his cash and doing all those stuff. So I think I've grown up that way. So I think having a supporting dad right from the beginning, right from my first salary that I earned, he taught me the importance of saving. So that way, I've been very financially prudent, and I think I've never planned my financials, but having invited me for this talk, I just recalculated what all have I done, where all have I invested. That's when I realized, hey, I'm really good at it. Actually, I think I would call myself as a successful planner, though I did not plan for it, but things just fell in place. Yeah, so I think women is very important for women to be financially very, very strong. And I would say that even a lot of young men, they're not really confident on where to invest. Or, for example, when I got married, I had to tell my husband that, hey, we have this home loan. So probably I think you have to go and first go look at closing the principal amount. Otherwise, you're going to be ending up paying a lot of interest. So that was something that when I told him, he went and calculated and he said, yeah, you're right. I think we should be doing that. So it's not that men are also very confident and strong about it, I think, but women play a very, very crucial role. I think unofficially, from our ancestors, women have been managing the financial wealth of the home. They've been the financial bookkeepers of home and running a big home, the servants and all the household expenses. But I think a lot more is required where we can definitely go ahead and manage the entire financial planning.
Awesome, Viji.
So
Definitely, I would, 100% concur with you on that. A lot of women entrepreneurs, when they ask me, like, to say, finance, I don't know. So I say, women actually have an advantage because, even it be like little negotiation skills, when you go shopping, how women have the negotiation skills inbuilt in them, and managing a house, irrespective of even if they have such a tight budget. I think women that way, we have it in our genes. We know how to manage money is what I would always say. So thanks, Vijay, for sharing your perspective. Srinidhi, I would like to hear from you from the millennials perspective on how you go about it.
Okay, all right. So, like you mentioned, it can be a little daunting at first. And, you're fresh out of college, you've taken up your first job, you have so much of financial freedom that's ahead of you. There's this urge that you can't stop to just go and spend all that money because before that, you had a limited amount of pocket money and you were accountable to your parents on how you spent that. So now when you have your own money, it's almost like you feel unstoppable. But it is really important to save, and it's also the point in life where you can save the most because you're probably still at home living with your parents when you've just started off your career. You don't really have a lot of expenses that you have to front, and in that sense, your family is also there to support in terms of finances and expenses. So it's the point where you can put in almost your entire salary into savings, and that really goes a long way in the future.
Lovely. Thanks for bringing that perspective, Srinidhi. Over to you, Rekha. I know you have lots of wisdom to share, so we are eager to hear from you.
I am at a stage in my life where I would say maybe it's the fourth quadrant of my life. As a woman, I've finished all my, immediate duties of bringing up good citizen children who are good citizens, two sons, and we are at a stage in life where we don't have to do anything unless we want to do it. So what I'd like to say is that when you start life, you should plan for a time in your life when you don't have to do anything unless you want to do it. It's very important.
Yes.
Because you should not still be running around and struggling when you are at a time when you cannot struggle. See, the early years are a time for struggle. They're a time for, stick your neck out, take risks and all that. But when you reach, the time when you are retired and then you want to take when you want to take care of, when you want to do things which you like to do, like maybe you don't want to do anything, maybe you want to just travel, maybe you want to indulge yourself, you should plan for that. I like that book, Rich Father, Poor Father, Rich Father. Building of assets. I think when you're very young, I'm glad Vijay pointed that out. And I think in Tamil Nadu, it's like very important that from an early age, you're told you have to own a house. So they're tied up hand and foot. By the time they're like 25, they're tied hand and foot, and they have to come up with monthly payments on the house. Whereas if you really listen to financial planners, they tell you don't tie yourself down with a house because you won't take a risk at all. But I don't know what it is, but my sons also did the same thing. They both invested in houses first thing, though I didn't tell them to do it. See, the thing about the house is you can't waste it away. So I think what I'd like to leave behind is plan for a future where you don't have to be pushed around because of financial requirements. You should be, have the kind of, what shall I say, the kind of cushion to be able to try out a lot of new things. So build your assets when you are quite young so that you have some assets. The other thing is, when I was young, of course, I belong to that generation when everybody said, oh, you don't bother about it. Whatever you want, I'll give you. My husband was an entrepreneur and he, cannot bear to see any money lying around. He'll blow it up. He's that type of person. But he really, I'm so happy he's like that because we ended up seeing 42 countries during our time together. He said, see, are you waiting till you become like your mother? My mother was 93. Says, you want to be like that when you cannot travel. So he says, see, I think a lot of joy should accrue from your money. You should use it to enjoy yourself also. Not all about hard security all the time. You should have a holiday fund, I feel, which, you use just for pleasure. Fortunately, the things I really crave are books. They're not like recently my husband wrote. Fortunately, she doesn't crave things like the Kohinoor. She, her interests are more towards books and, that sort of satisfaction. Books and holidays, I think these were our indulgences. And ensuring that there was a cushion where at this stage, of course, I think at least for the last 5 or 6 years, we really don't have to do anything unless we want to do it and we enjoy ourselves. So plan for that. But even in the early days, when you have to struggle, have a little cushion for joy. Have a little cushion for fun. That's very important. Dress well. Look the best you can. I think that you should do. Really cheers you up, Doesn't matter if you're really struggling. Look like the best you can. Early morning, get up. When you look in the mirror, you should feel, wow, look at that. That's nice. From morning. Don't get into, this habit of lockdown habit of wearing all these nighties and wandering around and all. Early morning, look good. So finances for, feeling and looking and enjoying. That should be definitely part of your budget. It's not only about food, clothing and shelter. I think I've said too much, Sangeeta.
No, perfectly fine. I think that was some beautiful words of wisdom, and you are bang on to say that how it's important because end of the day, I think we should feel good. I mean, after all, what is the point in earning if we're not able to enjoy ourselves the most? So I think you beautifully said, and the importance of planning for every little aspect of life that's important to each individual. That's really nice. So that leads me to ask you, what sort of financial goals are required? Because, when you have all these ambitions and aspirations, be it your travel, your books and other things, what sort of financial goals did you have? Because a lot of people I have realized, including myself, like if I were to look at myself few years back, in my early 20s and all, I never had any sort of financial goals.
You're still in your early 20s, I feel.
Thank you.
Forever. What a smile.
Thank you so much. So curious to know what sort of financial goals you had for yourself.
First, I didn't like to be in debt somehow. Even small amounts, I like to pay it off. Our major debt was only the house, that was a major debt till my son had to go abroad for studies. Then we mortgaged our house because we said the kids' education, that was our critical, goal, focus. Kids should have everything that they need to be the best. I think they were the first kids to have computers at home. Recently, my son, who's 41, wrote that in our family blog. He gave a picture of that computer. And he says how they are the founders of bankbazaar.com. And they're familiar. Our focus was they should have the best. They should not feel in any way there are boundaries for that. So we had to mortgage our house. Again, we had to do it when they started their business, bankbazaar.com. I'm so happy that, see, this, the properties which we invested in, and then of course we paid off our EMIs early, we could use it to grow their business. That's a great thing, to be able to help your kids to, and of course we have all four of us, including my sons, invest in, no, we don't invest directly in the stock market. We invest in, what is that?
Mutual funds?
Mutual funds. We all invest in mutual funds. So my son explained it. He said, we don't have the time to think what is the best. And in spite of my husband being CEO of Batliwala Karani, where crores of rupees would pass below his eyes, but still, no, all of us like a little bit risk averse, except in the businesses we start. Like imagine starting a business on innovation. Absolutely risky. Like everyone said, my father said, who's going to pay for it? Fortunately, people were willing to pay for it over the last 25 years. I'm saying you should have something where you can help your family to grow. Even if it is mortgaging the property, it is worth it because, the kids require that kind of support. So the goal is try not to get into huge debts on consumables. Indians are famous for that. One wedding, like my cook, one wedding in the family and everybody is wiped out for the next 20 years. So they're borrowed from money lenders. I'll tell you a little bit about that later. We have a duty to help our the people who work for us, the cooks and the drivers and all the people, really below the poverty line who work for us. We have a responsibility to help them. And I'll tell you how later.
Sure. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Rekha. That was like awesome answers. And I'm sure you have opened up, that for many people as well. So, Srinidhi, what are your financial goals? Have you set them? And what are your thought process there?
Okay, so adding to what Dr. Rekha had said, traveling is one of my biggest goals. Like she mentioned in the previous answer as well, I don't really want to buy a house and tie my finances down to that right now because that can be done anytime later on in the future. I still have a long way to go. But really saving up to travel and, seeing the world, those are some experiences that you can't get later on in life. You will have further complications. You will have other things that come into focus in the picture. You will have other priorities in life. So right now, traveling is one of my biggest goals. So putting away some money every month towards that really helps.
Yes, so truly spoken like a millennial, because I know most millennials, don't want to tie themselves down like you exactly said. So that's great. Thank you. Viji, what about you? Banker's daughter. You're on mute, Viji. You're on mute. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I think travel is something that we all have in common. So I too have a bucket list of checking 50 countries in my life. I've done with 15. So I still have a long way to go. So I think that is something that definitely, that is the joy that I that is something that drives me to earn more because I need to do that, those many countries that I have. And apart from that, of course, yes, saving up for our kids' education is something that definitely so that is what we are working towards. And I would beg to differ with Srinidhi in terms of the house thing. And even Dr. Rekha also mentioned that don't tie down with house. But for me, early on, having purchased some home thing, and with real estate price being low at that time, 20 years ago, I'm talking about. At that time, real estate prices were really low, and I've really benefited with the way it had appreciated. Because had I done it later on, the amount that I'd had to invest in buying it also would have been higher. So started off early when the prices were low, or because it keeps appreciating. So that is something, and I believe in putting all my eggs in multiple baskets. So a little bit of savings for your travel, a little bit savings for your kids' education, and for the house was something that was important for me. Yeah.
Great, great. So, talking about this homes, in investing in homes. So, I'd like to share a small real life incident that happened. So, like, I'm a coach. So, I was coaching one of these young techie. So, when I say young, she must be in her, 38 to 40, around that age. And she was wanting to buy a home for herself. Now, somehow, when they were searching, they did that. Is she and the husband, they managed to find a beautiful dream home for them, and they were very kicked about it, and they wanted to purchase it. How they had planned between them was to invest, part of their savings, and the balance they wanted to take a loan. So, in her excitement, she went and shared this thing that they're planning to buy this house to a very close friend of hers, and the friend then told her this is not the best investment because a friend had a bad experience. They were not able to pay the EMI, and then the bank obviously had to take back. And so she was saying, don't rush it up, don't do it now. Probably you need to save a lot more and then buy. And but then it was a head versus heart situation. She was wanting to buy it, but then she felt her friend was making a logical take on this as well. So she was in a bit of a dilemma, and that's what we discussed in our coaching conversation. So what emerged was something beautiful, and I thought this can be a good learning, especially if somebody is debating between the two. So what she realized was, I asked her, I said, what can be the worst situation that could happen in case you're not able to repay your EMI, because she was worried, about the job security of both her and her husband and all that. So then she thought about it, and then she realized she actually has an ancestral property, that is coming to her. And also her husband also, they had another family property. So she said, in a really worst case scenario, if I'm not able to, repay my EMI, I realized that, I do have some financial backups. I could always sell these extra properties and some other investments, and I should be able to manage. So that was like an aha moment for her, because she was really keen to buy this house. It was something that you love and you're able to connect with. But when you don't think of, how are you financially secure, then there could be this clash. So I thought that could be a good learning for most people. So that leads me to ask the three of you, what have been your financial learnings, probably your mistakes, in the sense mistakes that, others can avoid, learning from your experiences, and probably what were any financial challenges that you faced. Vijay, would you like to go first?
Okay, so my learnings in terms of personal finance was that my grandpa had this saying that he would pass on to all the family members, saying it was in Telugu. There was a nice phrase: "Person who has debt all around him, right, is supposed to be one of the richest person." That means when you have the loans that you purchase and invested in the right thing, right? Like for example, in your business or for the home which appreciates, right? So if you're doing it for the right investment, like Dr. Rekha also said, not in consumables, but in assets. So I think that is something that I go with my grandpa's advice that I keep having it for forever. But in terms of business financials, okay, that is something where I don't come from the finance background. So I think there I had a hard time, and it was a big learning for me because I just plunged into entrepreneurship. I don't even have an MBA degree. I just went into it because I had the passion, the heart for it. but I didn't know about how the equities are split, what is the sweat equities, or how the shares are split between a working partner, non-working partner. I think I had a big learning out there in terms of not having done my homework or research before plunging into the entrepreneurship. And of course, the balance sheet and this thing, I think how you are watching out on your income expenses in terms of the business. I think there your auditor, you need to have a right auditor. I think thankfully that was taken care of. But I think in terms of the equities and the partnerships, I think that was a big learning for me personally that I had, which I think every entrepreneur at least should be very, very watchful of on what they are getting into. So to avoid any heartburns later. Yeah.
Thanks, Viji, for sharing that. So that also leads me to prompt you that, Babu and I, we keep running these finance workshops for entrepreneurs. So probably you should join us next time for that. Yeah, okay, cool. Right, Dr. Rekha, would love to hear from you. I'm sure you have lots to share.
We started our business when I was in my early 40s. I felt that finally I need to do something where the total focus of my efforts is on something which I'm doing. Like, I had been vice president of Apollo Hospitals and I'd helped build it up from scratch. And then, I took a big risk when I took over as chief executive of Maxworth Green Harvest. I worked with them for 18 months. That was one of my, I don't believe anything is a mistake, by the way. I feel all failures are sent to teach you something. So I joined from Apollo, where everybody listened, even now, even today, they'd listen to whatever I say, because, I had built up that kind of brand equity. And then I was offered this job to set up a fruit and vegetable outlet across the country, 500 fruit and veg. As a vision, it sounded fantastic. So what I was told is we'll grow the fruit and vegetable and there's a 30% profit margin there if you grow the fruit and vegetables. So I just dived in, though everybody advised me not to do it. And though I knew nothing about fruits and vegetables, totally, they're perishables and it's a totally new ball game. I just dived into it. It was for 18 months. But, Linda Goodman talks about the accelerated path of thunderbolt path of accelerated karma. Like everything that I had to learn about loss, failure, about pain, about exhaustion, everything I learned in that 18 months. I wake up in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning and go to Kotal Bazaar with my people with gumboots. I would travel in, trucks coming down from Uttakamand. The way they dress up spoiled potatoes to look good with mud. All sorts of incredible things I learned in that 18 months. At the end of it, I was left with nothing in terms of self. I think if I'd worked a few more months in that company, I'd have died. Because I was not willing to give up. I never believed that there's something I cannot do. I said, if I do my best, if you do your best, you can do it. That was my belief. But I learned one thing. There are some things you cannot do. Even if you're God himself, you cannot do it. If there is no financial backup, if there are no real vegetables and fruits being grown and you have to buy from the market, there is no profit margin there. There is no profit margin. So at the end of 18 months, I backed out, exhausted, totally knocked out, with my reputation gone. So many years, carefully built up reputation, United India, where I was a star, and then Apollo, where everybody listened to whatever I said. Suddenly, Maxworth Green Harvest. They said it's all her fault. The whole thing was a mess. They lost one crore of rupees in that period of 18 months, which is nothing when you really look at it today. 1 crore of rupees I lost to bit. So I said, okay, I backed out. And for 6 months, I tell you, I was totally knocked out. I sat down, I wrote down everything that had happened, and I put together a book of my learnings, and I gave it to the chairman of the company. I said, this is what I learned from Green Harvest. Of course, finally, the whole thing didn't work at all. Then my husband was so sweet. He said, I think you're really knocked out, burnt out. He said, now go for a holiday. He sent me to the UK to Synectics to learn about creativity and innovation. You know, at previous year, I'd met George Prince, who's the founder of Synectics. So I went off for about 7 weeks, then came back, and then my parents were on a trip to South America. We went and had a big holiday. He didn't come. And then I said, I'm going to write, I met people who write musicals. I came back, I wrote a musical.
Wow.
Yeah. And the musical was with A.R. Rahman. You know, it's called Look Beyond Yourself. He was a young man. He not yet become big. He was, you know, he wrote 7 of my songs in one night. I'd given him the lyrics. He wrote all the song, you know, music in one night. Wow. That was on my birthday, 22nd December. Just imagine. And then we did produced it, 500, you know, cast of 500 people. Like people in the audience took part and all that. So I got back my confidence. You know, when you fail, you know, you feel nothing. You can't, you just feel so sad and knocked out and incapable of it. At the end of it, I said, I'm going to start a company on innovation, which everybody said, you're crazy. We don't. But then that's how the story goes.
Excellent, excellent. I think that was like amazing. Thank you so much. That was a fabulous share. I'm sure a lot of people feel inspired hearing this. Thank you so much. Srinidhi, what about you?
So if there's one thing I've learned from my parents, it's that it's never too soon to start saving up. And there's no right moment in time or in some right point in life where you suddenly wake up one day and realize, okay, I should start saving up money from today. My parents themselves started investing in mutual funds and really looking seriously into the whole saving monies matter a little later in life. So they've always insisted that I shouldn't turn out the way they did in my investment journey and really start off right from where I started my career. So even Babu uncle is aware of it. So that's one of my biggest learnings. It's never too soon, and it's always good to have a fallback option. If there's anything the pandemic has taught us in this last 1 year, it's that nothing is certain. You can plan and plan and plan and be prepared for multiple outcomes, but you can still get knocked down. So always having a fallback option and having something you can depend on, not another person, but yourself in terms of planning, that always helps.
I think that was lovely. You said it very well. And I think that's very important. So since you spoke about savings, you know, what I always say is, especially for millennials like you know, where you are like tempted to spend when you have the money. So I said, put savings first, because you save the amount what you want, and then with the balance, you can manage and play it around. You know, invest it in whatever that you want. In the sense, invest it in your experience, or you want to have fun, or you know, just like Rekha said, you know, just dress well, do your shopping, whatever you want. So you know, you have that fallback that you said. Yes.
Put away money at the start of the month, and then you do whatever else you want with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. Yeah, so that now leads me to ask you, what has been like your risk appetite? Because, you know, risk and rewards, you know, they are inversely proportional. So how, on what basis do you take risk? Like me, for example, as a person, I mean, forget the financial aspect. As a person, I'm slightly risk averse. You know, I don't like to be overly aggressive when it comes to risk. But now with age, I realize, okay, I should probably take the middle path, you know, when it comes to the risk. So, I mean, in life as well, you know, I like to now tread the middle path, which is why I think probably I moved out from my corporate career, and then now I have also started on my own, you know, as a business coach. So I feel I am the kind who likes to take the middle path. But, you know, how do youngsters like you think?
I think at point in time, you can choose to be a little more risk positive, I call it, or more risky in terms of your choices, because you do have that backing in terms of your family that you can depend on. You don't have a lot of exposure, or you don't have a lot of I don't know, a lot of financial dependence on you, right? Because you still have your family to fall back on. So you can be risky, but there's a very fine line between being risky and being foolish. So it's always, you always have to keep that in mind, and really be conscious of every decision that you make.
Yeah, beautifully said on being risky and foolish. Yes, that's very nice. And I think, like you said, with age, when the age is your advantage, you could probably tend to be a little more aggressive in your risk appetite. Great. Vijay, what about you? You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I keep doing that. Okay. Yeah. So all these years of growing up, I think I was a bit too cautious and prudent in terms of where the money went and how did I invest. But I think now that you have the investments and the backings that is there, that's safeguarded for the future, I think now with whatever that is the liquid assets that I have, I'm going full on in terms putting it on my business and taking it. So sometimes it's like in terms of even investing in a real estate in a remote place or something, sometimes I'm like, let's go ahead and do it. I think we have seen how things are appreciated. Maybe in the long run, right? This is going to appreciate and increase. Whereas my husband is a bit more, he's like more conservative. He's like, no, I don't think we should do that. We shouldn't really be doing that. I think I don't know whether it's my age and versus his age, or I'm like kind of little bit a bit aggressive in terms of the decision that I make now. I mean, and that thanks to the savings and the backings that we have already kept. With whatever is left, I think that is what we are doing. So I think that has given us a cushion, given me the cushion at least to be more a bit more aggressive.
So yes, I think that's a very valid thing. When you have that, sufficient cushion, and there is a fallback and a backup, then I think probably you could afford to be a little more aggressive in financial approach. That's a very good one. And Rekha, what about you?
The first investment should be in yourself.
Yes, totally agree.
Your health. Don't overwork and kill yourself. It's not worth it. Take care of your health. Go for regular checkups. Work on exercise. Make sure that you are in fine settle first, you and your family. Second, I think have some assets which will work for you when you cannot or when you don't want to. The asset can be a house. See, a house is difficult to meddle with. That's what I feel in our family, at least, because my hubby, as you know, is given to these huge flights of fantasy. Like 1 year, I remember we spent 10 lakhs on a 6-week tour, which is ridiculous. Like a house you can't mess around with. So it's there, like, nobody can touch it, like fixed. See, the thing with mutual funds and all, it's easily transferred into money. You can make. So certain fixed things, fixed investments, which are there and grow with you. I feel my husband says this house, it's a lovely house, I think, our dream house, but is the best investment he made after marrying me. So he thinks I'm also an investment that way. So the house, when we started, I had to cry and make a racket to buy the property. Because men don't like to get tied down. He must have been about 31 or so at that time. He still didn't want to, get a house. We were married for 5 years. I was expecting my first child, and then we bought the land, which is a fraction of what it's worth now. Of course, it's taken a lot of years. My sister says if you had put it into mutual funds, it would have been much more. But this you can, we've lived in it, we've enjoyed it, we've had such, so that. And second, have a fund. If you want a travel fund, that you put into, shares and whatever it is. I feel that, can grow. And if it doesn't grow, it doesn't matter. You just don't have that holiday, that's all. So that maybe you can, of course, this is a very conservative view, because if you look at the history and gold, I feel gold also, nobody can mess with it. You buy and put it in the locker, you enjoy it, and you enjoy it. See, that enjoyment of wealth is an important thing. Enjoyment of your house all those years. The jewelry, enjoyment of that jewelry. You get to enjoy it. Mutual funds in that way, you don't enjoy. Unless you're one of those guys who keep going in and saying, this is every time it comes down, you also, have a bad day and need your scotch or whatever. But so these two things I think are very important. And, the main thing is you should have people around you who are supportive also. See, you can depend. See, we never asked anybody for a loan that way. I like that. And I hope I never have to ask anybody for financial help till I die, including my kids. It's not that one thing I don't want. Because we work very hard to be independent, fiercely financially independent. So I never want that to happen. I think it won't, but you never know. See, look at the refugees. What is stability? Look at the refugees. One war and that's it.
Absolutely.
So stability should come from inside also. And to create wealth with whatever small things you have, like my mother had her chickens, small things. You should keep, everything around you should be developed and grown, plants, animals, the house, everything, you should make it more beautiful, make it Lakshmi Garam, they say that from the column, everything should attract and look
Prosperity.
Yeah, auspicious.
Very nice. Very, very beautifully said. So, in fact, what stood out for me and what I would like to pick up from what you said is about the refugees. In the sense, life is, yes, very unpredictable. And I always feel even the financial matters are unpredictable and uncertain. And, with these current times, I think they have been the greatest example, with people losing their jobs and, the uncertainty is there too much. So, I always tell, people when they ask me that it's best to diversify, like whatever are your investments, don't put all your eggs into one basket. It's always good to kind of spread them across. And the example I'd like to give is, the Satyam software. Now, those shares before the debacle of Satyam, they were at a peak and everybody would have loved to have the shares of Satyam, but that was something that was unexpected. And then, the share price plummeted. And I know a lot of people who, burnt their fingers with that. So those were unexpected things. So and that's why I think diversifying is important. So I'm curious to know if the three of you have diversified, your investments, and if yes, maybe you could just say whether it's gold, real estate, and mutual funds, whatever it is. So if you could just spell them out, then our viewers also, I'm sure they would get think through about that and decide for themselves. So, Srinidhi, would you like to go first?
So at the moment, it's just mutual funds for me. And probably like Dr. Rekha mentioned, I might just start investing in a little bit of gold. Maybe, start a small jewelry. You have those jewelry schemes now where you put in a monthly payment and then you can withdraw it after a year. So do something like that, buy something nice for myself. So I think gold, like my mother also says, gold is a very safe investment. And it's something that will hold value even over many years as a time period. So probably gold and mutual funds.
Okay, great. So, gold, my take is, yes, I think it has a lot more emotional value, especially for women, rather than actual value, because gold biscuits are still fine, or gold bonds or something, but jewelry, while it's great, I don't know how much it would appreciate. So that may be something you would like to check out before you, go in for it. Thanks for that. Vijay, what about you?
Yeah, I think I completely agree on the gold. I think for me, I think the jewels that I had from the marriage itself was good enough, which we hardly get to enjoy that only. But I think now I invest, it's for me, gold coins or bonds is what I go for, because every time I go and check the making charges and the wastages, that gives me a heart. But I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this.
I agree.
So I believe in going for coins or silver. It's also silver coins are really amazing the way it's been appreciating.
Yeah.
So
I fight you on the gold.
Yeah.
Right.
So I believe in definitely diversifying. Early on, I bought a house, and real estate is something that I've at least touched, seen some good way it is appreciated. I've been buying, selling, and that's really helped me in terms of real estate and gold coins or silver coins is something another thing that I would definitely vouch for. And of course, some liquid cash in terms of whatever that I have access, I go and put it in my FD and I have a monthly RD also. Very that is something that I strongly believe in because right from my first salary, my dad said set aside 5,000 every month in terms of the RD. And after 5 years, when I got married, I saw that there was a big lump sum which I could go and spend it on my I could splurge it on my wedding. That's something that you want to splurge also for your wedding that's happening.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I didn't want to put the burden. So I think that is something that's very important. And not just wealth or financial wealth, but I also believe in investing in knowledge. Kalvi Chelvama, Pur Chelvama, I would always go with Kalvi Chelvam. I think knowledge is something I always believe in investing in myself. As Rekha ma'am said, invest in your health. Health is definitely important. Spend time on yourself in going ahead and doing some workouts or in the form of dance or spending some time on that or sports that I do definitely. And in terms of knowledge, upgrading yourself, learning. Every year I have to learn something. What did I learn this year? So I'm a die-hard learner. I have to keep learning something. So, and that is something that has reaped benefits and it will always give you, be it a refugee or whatever. I think knowledge, when you have the knowledge, that is something that cannot defeat you. So that is something that I'm
Absolutely.
strongly
Absolutely, and nobody can steal it from you also, and you don't have to. So I always say, for maximum returns, invest in yourself. Yes, okay, great. So, Rekha, I'd love to hear from you.
You know, when I started my business, I wanted a business with very low overheads because I saw what happens when somebody starts a huge business and closes it. All the people who are out of work and all the, negative things that you have to face when your overheads are high.
Correct.
So I wanted a business with low overheads. And then I wanted something where I could do it anywhere in the world. Like if I wanted
I
to...
think you had the foresight of work from anywhere many
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. Like, I can go anywhere in the world and I can earn a living now. I'm very confident of that, even at this stage.
Excellent.
I just have to go myself, and what I know, I can earn a, living out of that and a good living. So that was, like totally intangible wealth, which I collected for myself. And of course, my husband was so supportive. I did everything, my PhD quite late and with a lot of help from him. And, he allowed me to try so many new things. Like imagine giving up 3 months to do a musical. Like that, I've done 4 musicals, written 4 musicals when I did nothing else. And I was supported to. So you need an income which will support you through these fallow periods when you want to take huge risks. Like, who am I to write a musical? I mean, it's a, nobody knows. I went to 2 or 3 countries to watch musicals. I spent several weeks watching musicals and then see, the thing is, it's way out. Like, it's like, I think you should dream beyond your family's parameters. Dream beyond the stereotypes that people build around you. Be audacious. I'm saying be audacious. Try to get on to things which nobody has done before. Do it. See, even if you lose all your money, it will expand you to the sense that you can never go back to being the small self you were before you tried that.
Correct.
And of course, finally, never, 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 never give up. Never give up. So fall down, get up, cry a bit, get up and go. Doesn't matter.
Right.
No dishonor in falling. Dishonor is in not getting up.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. And, that leads me to say it's wow, not just words of wisdom, but the world of women, the wonder of women, it's all wow. Like, I think that's the beauty of it. Yes, Viji, you want to say something?
Yeah, so another thing, a very important thing that I want all the listeners to do is invest in a good health insurance for the future as well. A lot of times, what I've realized is a lot of my colleagues are dependent on their office insurance, medical insurances, right? That takes care of their family's health. With this pandemic, a lot of them have lost their jobs. People have been sent out of the organization. They lose the insurance also, and at that time they're probably going through some medical problem. It's very difficult to go ahead and get another insurance. So
Correct.
very, very important for everyone to invest in a safe medical insurance. Don't just depend on your organization's insurance, but also something that is on your own, a private insurance also.
That's a very, very valid suggestion, Viji. Thanks for sharing that. And yes, I would also like to know if there are any quick question and answers for any of our lovely women out here. And
Sangeeta,
yes,
I just want to share what we can do for the people around us.
yes, please. Yes, yes.
See, as soon as anybody starts working with me, I make sure that they take a life insurance policy. Lot of people say it's no use. Why should you do it? Returns are so low. I say it doesn't matter. At that level, it's good to have a life insurance policy. They have little kids and they have people depending on them. First is that. Second, I make sure they have an accident insurance, which I give myself. Third thing, I say whatever they save, that is, I mean my domestic staff, whatever they save, I match it. I say save, like the daughter of the person who sweeps outside my house. I said, if you, whatever you save, she saves about 250 rupees or 300 a month and I cut it out of her salary. It's a small salary. But I say, whatever you save, I'll give you I will match it. I feel that is very, very important to force them to save. And when it goes out of their salaries, it's better. Because otherwise they go berserk over silly things.
Yes.
Like somebody, Kad Putra ceremony or some, totally consumer oriented thing. I mean, that is their joy, like our travel probably. But, I want you to handhold people around you. Make sure that they are financially working within their, financially within a certain, and health insurance. Whatever it is, some small health insurance.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I want you all, see, another thing, a big part of our budget has been giving to charity. In Rotary, we have something called Paul Harris Fellow. So, I mean, it's not much. I've given $26,000 so far. Every year you pay out $1,000. I feel that is for my divine balance sheet, because it goes to people you don't know at all. It just goes out somewhere. I feel that you must pay something for the fact that you're alive, doing well, and you're able to sort of give some small amounts, charity. See, the Muslims have that percentage. The Christians also think about it, but I feel we should have that. Give to people who cannot have, even if you're having problems, monthly give something away. I feel it has a very good impact on your well-being. I feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a very, very valid point, very useful, and I'm sure you've made a lot of them think on what they can do, how they can contribute to others' growth. So thank you so much for sharing. And I think that was a very nice and lovely discussion. Babu, what are your thoughts, and what is it that you'd like to tell us now?
I'm just kind of amazed, Sangeeta, the variety of thoughts that have come in. Each has come in with so much of value add. Lots of takeaways for me. I've been simply noting things down for my own kind of understanding. Of course, I was always aware Rekha Shetty is a wealth of knowledge, but even Srinidhi had a lot of things that I thought was very relevant, and the way they kind of plan, and the way she said that you need to start early and you need to be independent. And of course, Viji, very valid point about health insurance. You know, I've had cases where people have been in between jobs, and when the health insurance got was needed, and they were kind of caught on the wrong foot, so to say. So a lot of very, very valuable advice, Sangeeta. We have some, any questions? If you can put it up on chat. I know that we're running really kind of behind schedule, but Sangeeta, truth be told, you know, I never saw the time, and it just flew. You know, we're about an hour. I estimated, you know, when we were talking the other day, we estimated that we will do it for about 40 or 45 minutes, and it's an hour plus, and we kind of just didn't have a moment of silence. And wonderful, yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Yes, very nice.
So if we have,
ask questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box or unmute yourself and share. Babu, would you like to say something else meanwhile?
Yes, Sangeeta. So I wanted, I know I'm just asking this question to all the panelists. You know, you're looking at it from the other end, right? So you're seeing men invest or men deal with money. And whenever, we go to a movie and we look at some scene and we say, geez, I wish I had the camera before me and I could have done it very differently. What is that one thing which you people, I mean, all of you, any of you think men can do better with money, and which they are not doing correct? Because this is a women panel, right? So I'm just kind of curious to know where men can be better with money. Yeah, this is a very gender-specific question. I'm sorry, but I was just too picked not to ask this.
I have a simple answer. Just marry the right woman, and I think they are set.
That's a good one.
You know what? I admire my husband's confidence with money. He's completely confident with money. He says, if I blow this up, I'll get something back somewhere else. Totally confident. I think that comes from long practice. From the age of 16, he's handled his own money. You know, he left home at 16 to study. So he's very confident with money. I am a little fearful of losing money. I'm not as confident. I think, when we built our house, he got the best materials, the most artistic stuff. I said I would have used plywood. He said, you're mad. He has a clear vision of that he will be able to control his finances. I really admire that. He bought the best stuff, bought when we were young, struggling individuals at 28. He bought the best stuff. It's the best stuff even today. Like, nothing is slipshod. Nothing is like, doesn't matter. We'll improve it later. Everything was the best. And even now, I really admire his confidence. I think men have a certain confidence and confidence about money, which, I didn't have. I don't have even now.
And I think gender-wise...
One second, sorry. No, I think, Rekha, your husband has married the right lady, so that's why it's all right. Please tell that to him. Right. Thank you. Sorry, Vijay, please go on.
Yeah. We've been married 46 years, so it must be right. So
there's some questions coming up in the chat, but I'll just quickly add. I think gender specific, since that's one of my topics. So I think I've seen where women also splurge, and then I would say in my house, my husband is the one who splurges on Amazon. Like every other day, there's one parcel that's there. So I think I've seen a lot of men also splurge. So nothing that women are good or men on things. So I think it's just about the interest and taste and everything. So I wouldn't want to comment on the gender specific thing because I've not seen any difference there.
I agree with you, Vijay. Yes. Babu, you're on mute.
Sorry. So we have a few questions out here. So I'm going to read it out so that all of us are here. So Kavita Karthikeyan has this question: is investing in stock market advisable? Absolutely advisable, Kavita. But like Rekha said earlier, if you know what you want to buy and if you've done your homework, then stock market is a great place. If you don't know, then get on with mutual funds. It's a better place where there's a lot of experts there. So that's my answer. Anything that you want to add, Sangeeta?
No, I think you just said it absolutely right. I think stocks, like if you don't have the knowledge, then it's better not to. Or if you're looking at a real long term, then I think the stock market is good. Like, for example, people who bought the shares of Infosys, many years ago, now it's just multiplied. So, really so many times. I think the appreciation was great. So it really depends. But if you want to look at it in a slightly short term or medium term, then yes, you need to spend some time in understanding the stock market. That's what I would say.
Super cool. Super cool.
Thank you, Sangeeta and Mr. Babu. Yeah, that was my second question. When it comes to stock market, I don't know anything about it. I'm just learning. So should we take financial advisor's help? Is that advisable always?
See, my sense in anything in life, if you don't know, my suggestion is go to the expert. I'd be biased if I told you should come to a financial expert because I am one of them. But like in anything else, right? So if you don't know what health ailment you have, go to a doctor. Similarly, so for anything, it may make sense to kind of reach out to an expert. Absolutely. Sangeeta, over to you. Anything else you want to add?
Kavita, it would be good to reach out to Babu. Like he said, he's a Fin Sherpa, and definitely, I'm sure he has a lot of valuable advice for you. So you could connect.
In fact, now that we are on that note, I just want to quickly kind of show we have something for people. For people, especially women, we want to give out an offer that there's a free review available till the 31st of March. So do reach out to us. Like I said, we're not doing this from a lip service perspective of just doing the seminar, but we're doing this more from a point of view of helping people get into better financial health. So feel free to reach out to us. The details are there, www.filsherpa.com. So we are throwing open, do reach out if there's anything that we can be of help. We'll be very, very glad to help out. Absolutely fine. So I just thought this was a relevant time to kind of bring this. So I said, let me do that.
Absolutely,
Yes.
sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Sangeeta is there.
I think there was one more question.
Yeah, Pallavi has this question. What kind of investment should be gold, biscuits, coins, or jewelry? Is the question I think Pallavi has. Your answer to that, Sangeeta?
Yeah, so when it comes to gold, I mean, if you are looking at it from an emotional perspective, jewelry is good. But if you're looking at it purely from a financial angle, then definitely gold biscuits or gold bonds are a better bet. So it depends on what is it that you want. Like if if your heart says you need to have that gold jewelry, yes, I mean, go ahead and get yourself. But if your heart or the head says no, you're looking at financial gains and financial growth, I'm looking at it as a pure investment, then the biscuits and the bonds are a better bet.
And that's the beauty of this this group, Sangeeta. I had a lot of takeaways, and I mean it. So Rekha answered this question very differently. She said, "Don't just create wealth, enjoy the wealth. So buy jewelry and wear it and enjoy it. It'll also appreciate maybe slightly lesser, but you are at least enjoying life, right?" Exactly. And we had also the rational side, the emotional and rational. So we need to balance both. Absolutely.
Yeah,
well
so
said,
I always think whatever is important to you as an individual, I think then if, like as I said, if gold jewelry is important for you, go ahead and get it. But if you think no, your appreciation of the investment is more important, go. So just go by your heart many times, but ensure you're taking the decision with a lot of awareness. Financial awareness and prudence is what makes the difference.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
One thing that I also strongly advise is try and invest in a property, a house, not just because it appreciates or anything, or it's a safe thing that you have a roti kapda makan safeguarded, but it is also helpful for your tax saving. It's like I've kind of benefited hugely with the tax savings. Every year you have that so much of tax that's saved because of investment, and there's also an appreciation that happens because of that.
Super cool. Absolutely. Well, good advice, Vijay. I mean, absolutely. Buying a property and getting double benefit of not just the appreciation, but also kind of the tax break is certainly a wise thing to do. Absolutely. I think we have come right out of time. I know that all of us, it's a Saturday evening, it's a weekend time, and all of us have plans, I'm sure. So with no more ado, I want to thank all the panelists, Dr. Rekha, Vijay, Sangeeta, and Srinidhi for making time to be here. And of course, our fantastic audience who are there. I saw the count go up to almost 48, 49 people at the middle somewhere. So thanks a ton. And from the bottom of our hearts, a small token of our appreciation will reach you later this evening for each of the panelists. Thank you so much. But thank you for all your wise wisdom and your mind share this evening. Have a lovely weekend and look forward to catching up once again. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Wishing you all the best of financial success.
Thank you. Thank you, Sangeeta.